All right. So in our last video, we just went over the basics of what a microservice is. And just for review, a microservice contains everything we need to implement one feature of our app: routing, middleware, business logic, and access to our database. So let's talk about the differences in how these services will communicate with each other. So I'm going to show you an example of synchronous communication and asynchronous communication. And this is different from JavaScript asynchronous versus synchronous communication. So we're on the second step here where we're deciding on how our microservices are going to communicate with each other. That's what we're deciding on right now. So let's say we have the YouTube comment service and it makes a request to our user database to get the user so that it can post a comment. Now, this would be an example of a synchronous communication style between microservices. What this means is that one microservice has to get the information from another microservice's database. All right. And that's called synchronous communication. Now, this is not best practice because when we have to communicate between multiple services, then we run a risk of one request being too slow. We run a risk of failure. And this is why, from the beginning, the idea of microservices is to kind of separate these different concerns. So the idea here is for every service, it's going to connect to one database, and every service needs to be independent. And this is done to eliminate single points of failure and to improve performance. In addition, what if we have to change our database or our schema structure, and this upload service or comment service is requesting info from the user service, and we have to actually update that when we update our user database? We would have to update what we've specified in our comment service to be able to get the right information. That's not a good idea. The third thing is that some services might function more efficiently with different types of databases. For example, a non-relational database like NoSQL versus MySQL. So again, this is just showing you another example of um, synchronous communication with our upload service. And you can see here that it has to make a request to our comment service to get the information it needs. And then our comments database will send it back to our upload service. So this is something that you can do. And this is done by making direct requests from one service to another to get the requested data. Now we're going to talk about another kind of communication, and this is asynchronous communication. So the difference between the two is synchronous communication. Microservices communicate with each other by using direct requests, and asynchronous communications communicate with each other using events. So this is event-driven communication, and you're going to see why this is so important when we start working with Lambda functions and event-driven Azure functions and things like that on the cloud. This architecture of asynchronous and mapping things to an event bus will make our job a lot easier. So here's an example of asynchronous communication. So we have a comment microservice, and the only thing that it's here to do for YouTube is to create and list out comments. That's the only job that it has. All right. And so once it tries to create a comment, it's going to create an event. And we can create many different events. But for now, our event is going to have a type, which means the type of event that it is and the data that we want from that event, which should just be a string, whatever the comment is. And this event gets passed to our event bus. And all of our services will have access to this event bus. And they will be able to pass data from one service to another through the event bus. So that way, we are not making any requests to any other services, and therefore we don't have any dependencies. Every service is still going to be completely independent. All right. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Those are the main things. So we're starting to get an idea of how we're going to structure our YouTube clone on a microservice level. So we're going to have several different services. We're going to have a comment service, an upload service, which is code to upload a video file, a live stream service, which is code to create a live stream, and a chat service, which is going to be a way for us to communicate back and forth through WebSockets in a live chat room setting. So just know that the event bus, the event Style communication is associated with asynchronous, and sync is direct request. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this short video. In the next video, we're going to actually start working with some code and actually set up a to-do kind of basic rundown how to do this, which won't be the precise way to do this, but you need an introduction so you can see this in action. So I will share this with you guys in the next video.